Yellow.
Mellow.
Welcome to Jenny and Chels. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Chels.
And today we are back with more stories. Today I have two stories for you.
And you
One of them
teased
is kind
me.
of short, so I want to do two.
You teased me with
You're not
you
even
told me a
ready for the
little bit
second
about
one. For the second
okay.
one, you're not even ready. So the
Okay.
first story I have is about it's on the no sleep subreddit, and it says if they approach you, do not tell them the time. Make an excuse and leave.
Both of
And
them to
leave.
assume I
Peace
know the
out.
time. Leave and lead.
And the
Boom.
other story is about a guy that convinced his wife that she was about to die, that she had cancer, and he just was not ready for the reaction she was going to give him.
She was
So, yeah,
happy she was going to be freed of this wedlock.
it's just about to find.
Finally, I don't have to sleep next to your snoring self anymore, husband.
You're bad. You're so bad. And then Chelsea's going to have a revenge. Is it a revenge story or am I the asshole?
It is a revenge story. It's a petty. It is
Oh,
juicy, baby. It feels
okay.
good.
All right.
Yeah. I
I can't
didn't
wait.
even. Hmm?
I can't wait.
Yeah, you're.
I
I
have
think
this.
you'll like it.
Okay, let's get started.
Yay!
So it says, if they approach you, do not tell them time. Tell them the time. Make an excuse and leave. There may be a child selling flowers on the side of a rundown street, or even a scruffy looking man stood by a market stall flogging fake branded t shirts. It doesn't matter in what situation you're in, do not, under any circumstances, give them the time. Make an excuse, run, or just say nothing. My name is Tom, and I came face to face with one of them 4 years ago. Me and Scott were out in town on our way to the sport bar to watch the game. As we rounded the corner onto our destined street, Cherry Road, we were suddenly approached by a frail man. He had smoky gray thinning hair and a rugged, world-weary face. His shabby brown, mouth-eating suit jacket hung upon his tired body as he tightly clutched a case full of jewelry. Anything take your fancy, kind sirs? He said, brandishing yellow stained, uneven teeth. No, thank you, I swiftly replied as I raised my hand up towards him. Are you sure? Not even a lovely pair of diamond earrings for a special lady? He quickly contended while moving into our path. We said we were fine. Please move out of our way. Scott sneered. Scott sneered back at him as he swerved his body around the gaunt looking pest. Can you at least tell me the time? The man called out as we continued along our path. Scott glanced at his phone, turned and shouted back, 12:15. We both then crossed the road and headed toward the illuminated sign of the bar. Though it appeared strange in this day and age that someone will ask for time, seeing the amount of technology we have around, we both grew up in an era of wristwatches and wall clock, so we weren't too unfamiliar with this question. As harmless as that man's query was, the following days were not. After the game, after the game has finished in our favor, we proceeded to keep the beers flowing in celebration. Well into that evening, I am still not sure how I got home that night, but I certainly remember how I was awoken the next morning. My phone vibrated frantically on my cabinet. As my generic ringtone charmed me from my slumber, I groggily woke up and answered, my voice husky and irregular. Hello? Tom, are you up? Scott, is that you? I said, trying to adjust my eyes. Yes, something weird happened to me last night, man, he replied, seemingly full of energy. Do you even remember last night? I replied. I responded while chuckling. Tom, no, listen. You know that old annoying man? The guy trying to sell us jewelry yesterday? He came back in a calm but serious tone. Yeah, he was weird. What about him? I quizzically asked. I saw him down the road as I was walking home last night. I had turned onto my street and he was there, just standing at the bus stop. Scott said, now talking in a faster and more eccentric manner. That's pretty strange, dude, but probably just a coincidence. He was at the bus stop after all, I responded, trying to bring the rational conclusion in the situation. Yeah, that's what I thought at first, but all the buses in our area had stopped by the time we left at 10:45. Scott eagerly came back, challenging my hypothesis. I think you're reading too much into this, bro. It's not like he was at your door or anything, I jokingly said, trying to ease Scott's concerns. Plus, you were drinking quite a lot, if I remember correctly, I continued. You're probably right. It just unnerved me a bit, that's all, he replied, now seeming to accept the situation for what it was. We both had plans that day. He was out with his girlfriend Danielle, and I had to go to my parents for dinner with my wife Samantha. I didn't get much time during weekdays to socialize as I worked long hours for an insurance company. This meant I didn't speak to Scott again until Thursday night. I had got home from work and was about to sit down to eat with Samantha when my phone rang. Hey, what's up? I answered while my wife glared at me. Tom, I saw him again. He was at the office block window next to mine, just staring at me. Scott frantically started blurting out at me. Scott, chill, man. Are you sure it was him? I asked while I was trying to calm him once again. It was him. I remember that face and that office. It's empty. It's been up for let for like 5 months or so. I looked at Samantha, shook my head, and shrugged. I walked into the living room. He may just have another job as a decorator or something, and just so happened to be working at that office. He might have recognized you from Saturday. That might be why he was looking at you, I reassuringly explained. Hmm, yeah, I suppose. I have been under a lot of stress at work with the whole takeover and all the redundancies, Scott replied, his tiredness now filtering through into his voice. I'm just about to eat, so I've got to go, man. See you Saturday, yeah? I finished up our conversation while Samantha appeared into the room, suggesting me to come eat. Okay, sorry, bro. Of course. See you Saturday. I'll be round to yours around too, Scott said, now in a more relaxed manner. No problem, man. Anytime. See you then. I hung up the phone while wandered back into the kitchen. What was that all about? Samantha said while cutting into the tender beef joint. Nothing. Just Scott keeps thinking that he's seeing some old jewelry salesman everywhere, I replied. That's weird. Has he gotten a stock in that? She said while letting out a small laugh. Apparently so. It's probably his wild imagination, though. You know how he gets, I said back to her humorously. We continued our evening meal and settled down for the night in front of a rom-com. We eventually went to bed around 11 p.m. The next morning, I awoke to a few missed calls from Scott. My phone had been on silent during the night, and me being a heavy sleeper, I didn't wake. The three calls were made at 12:15, 12:20, 1:14. I immediately thought that there was an emergency and called him back. The rhythmic calling tone sounded for a minute before cutting to his voicemail. I tried a few more times throughout the morning. He wasn't answering. Just before I was going to drive to his and I left work at 6 p.m., he called me. Scott, what's going on, man? I quickly answered. Sorry, bro. I went into work and forgot my phone, Scott replied in a dejected voice. You called me a couple times last night. What happened? I said in quite concerned voice. The guy, he was at my window last night, just staring. I called you, then the police. I didn't know what else to do, he said in between dip sides. Shit, man, are you okay? Did they get him? I replied, feeling guilty that I hadn't believed his previous worries. Nah, the police came around and checked around the place, but didn't find anyone. I'm okay, just a bit freaked out, that's all. I'm just glad this week was done with, he said before letting out a deep sigh. Yeah, well, let me know if anything happens tonight and I'll come over. Is Danielle not with you? I asked. No, she's been away all week with work. I'll catch up with you when I see you tomorrow, he said, while trying to tie our conversation up. Okay, man, as long as you're good, I said, not quite believing his calm demeanor. I went home half expecting another call from him that night. He surely wasn't doing well. I even thought about going around to check on him, but I didn't want to invade his evening. I woke the next day to no missed calls. To my relief, the police must have scared the intruder off, I thought. Scott would be over later today to watch the game, and Samantha was going over to her friends for a baby shower. The time was nearing 3 p.m., and the game would start soon. Would be starting soon. Where was Scout? I thought, while checking on my phone. I called him a couple of times, growing more and more concerned every time. Each ring, I was met with his infuriating voicemail. The game started, but my attention was in my own racing negative thoughts on what may have happened. Half an hour later, my open ended questions were answered. My phone began to ring. Unknown number. Hello? Good afternoon, sir. Am I speaking with Tom Gridfield? An officer sounding voice answered. Yeah? Who am I speaking to? Sorry. I hesitantly replied, expecting it to be another cold caller. This is Detective Hammer. There's been an accident involving you, Mr. Scott Taylor. I believe you were due to meet him today. Is that correct? What? Yes, he was supposed to come around. Is he okay? I chucked back, a lump now forming in the back of my throat. Unfortunately, he was involved in an accident earlier today, and we would need to for you to come down to the police station. We will explain everything once you get here. I agreed and hung up the phone. I started to tremble as I feared the worst. The drive over the police department was a blur, a terrifying, sickening blur. I pulled outside and hesitantly went up to the desk. They called the detective over from the back office. I noticed Danielle, Scott's girlfriend, was sat in the corner, her eyes red raw, with flowing tears running down her blotchy face. The detective led me into a small room with a large rectangular mirror. He went on to tell me how Scott was involved in an RTA at 12:15 today on the corner of Cherry Road and Oakwood Street. He regrettably passed away at the scene. My eyes began to fill as I buried my hand into my head into my shaking hands. I managed to compose myself after a few moments. How did it happen? I managed to ask, my voice quivering through my tears. The detective began to say that there was no explainable reason why Scott lost control of the vehicle. They were busy looking at the CCTV and dashcam footage to decipher the cause. I waited with Scott's parent and Danielle, each of us consoling one another just as Samantha arrived. I latched onto her and I broke down on what had become the worst day of my life. The next day, we were all called back to the station as there were an update on the investigation. We sat anxiously awaiting the pending news and ultimately some answers. We were each called in one by one to that same daunting room. I sat down as Detective Hammer showed me a dashcam footage from the vehicle behind Scott's BMW. I saw Scott pass the sport bar we had been drinking in only a few weeks before. My drifting now upsetting memories were suddenly interrupted as I watched the small monitor. His car neared the corner just as someone slowly emerged from his back seat. They then lunged their arms around Scott's neck as the car began to swerve. The screeching tires and smoke smeared to radiate from the screen in front of me. The video then stopped before the fatal impact. Who the fuck was that? I shouted, while my breathing grew deeper and more erratic. We were hoping you could tell us, the detective replied. We were aware that Mr. Taylor had seen a man throughout the week that he believed was following him. He continued. Play the video again, I hastily said. I watched in horror as he focused on the person in the back seat. He had smoky gray thinning hair and was dressed in a shabby, all brown suit jacket. Then, that's when I realized it was the man that was trying to sell us the jewelries. It's him! The man Scott said was following him, I said while pointing at the screen. Was he in the car as well? When you found Scott? I continued. No, that's the thing. There was nobody else in the car. with Mr. Taylor when he arrived, nor did any witnesses see any other people leave the vehicle, the detective said in a puzzled tone. I began to explain to him our brief encounter with the man, saying how he declined the jewelries and Scott had just given him the time after the man asked, and then paused and looked at the stop dash cam footage. The time showed 12:14:58. It was only then that it dawned on me. A seemingly unlocked memory came to my mind. Why did the salesman ask the time when in his case sat a row of silver plated watches? When I had no more information to give the detective, I was allowed to leave. I had a mixture of sadness, anger, and confusion pulsating through my brain, all the anguish all at once. I spent the next few days searching for any sort of logical explanation to this madness. I stumbled upon a few other stories in my obsessive search. As I went down the unexplained rabbit hole, each experience I read was told how a stranger had asked the time to an unexpected victim, normally a friend or a family member. Once they had given them the time, they had unwillingly scheduled in their own death, exactly a week later, in the same location that they answered. It also described the torment the victim had endured leading up to their demise. Many described the people as demonic predators that sent to this world to capture souls for the devil, while others spoke of interdimensional entities that fed on the chase and the hunt and eventually the kill of their prey. Many of the experiences sounded all too familiar, and yet it couldn't possibly be real. The things these people were talking about did not exist. They just couldn't exist. Whatever happened to Scott in my eyes was a tragedy. But I can say with full confidence, if a stranger asked me the time again, I would say nothing and get as far away as possible. I would advise you to do the same. And that's the end of the story.
My jaw dropped when you said the guy. Why did the guy ask for the time when he had so many watches?
Yeah,
I would have that right there is very ominous. I would just pretend I suddenly don't speak the language anymore.
you couldn't have known.
That's true because he eases you in. He asks you like, "Oh, do you want these watches? Do you want these earrings? Do you want this necklace? Do you want this? This? Okay, never mind." And you feel bad by saying no, 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 no. So then when he asks something that is seemingly free, like, "What's the time?" You're like, "Oh, I can give you that at least."
And then just get rid of him, like, okay, let me
Exactly.
just answer the time and just keep it pushing so he can leave
Oh,
me alone.
that is awful. And then
And also, like, even if you think about it, you could always think, oh, maybe the watches are not working.
that
He's
too.
selling them, but maybe there's no batteries in them or something like
Yeah.
that. And usually, too, like watches, like when if it's new, it has that little plastic that blocks the battery
Yeah,
from started
exactly. That's
like
smart.
going.
Yeah.
So you have to pull it before it starts working.
I feel so
But
bad
yeah,
for him. This is
poor Scott.
I after going to Vegas, I've learned not
Hmm.
like it's awful, but I just don't make eye contact and pretend they're not there. Cuz a lot of people who sell items on like just knickknacks on the street will come up to you and like put a
Hmm.
bracelet on you and be like, "Hey, do you like this? I can give you just give me whatever you can." And ever since yeah, they did that. They came up to me and my brother and they put the bracelet
Hmm.
on us and they're like, "Oh, here it's free, but you can give me whatever you have." And I was like, "I have no cash." And she was like, "Oh," and she took it back, like she removed me from my wrist. But like, why did you touch me without my consent?
Right, right. And that's just too much. Like here is a lot of people trying to sell perfume and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, "Oh, you wanna come smell this?" And they'll just rub it at me like, "Listen, I don't wanna
Ew.
smell like your pee stain perfume. Don't put it on
Mm.
me. Thank you very
She said
much."
bee stained.
Like, no, no, no. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
no, especially with perfume, you don't know, maybe you'll have an allergic reaction to the type of
Allergic
oil or
reaction,
whatever
thank
you
you.
use.
Like, I'm not blistering all over and having bumps and looking like I have the plague. Like, be the first case of plague 2023.
Yeah, no thank you.
Eh, I'm okay. Another pandemic and be the first one.
Be one of the people most hated.
They'll be like, that damn perfume, because she wanted some cheap perfume. Look now.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Should I do the second story or do you want to do the revenge first?
I think I want to. Let's do the revenge. Let's take a break from the creepiness and do
Okay.
a little.
Because you do need it. This one is intense too, although it's shorter.
This one was creepy.
Alright,
Okay.
so you take it away.
My grandma deaded money in her will. So, I don't know the full story, but I do know the gist of it. My grandma had raised her kids with love. She practically spoiled them, and she raised her grandkids too, me and my two sisters. Two of them, my uncle and my dad, became addicts, and the last, my aunt, became estranged. I've got tons of relatives, so I don't know if I've ever met her. If I have, I don't remember her face nor her name, so let's call her Little Miss J. Jay left without looking back and constantly asked my grandmother for money. She hardly repaid grandma, which was a big mistake because, surprise, surprise, my grandma was on top of every penny that she had. She was the best I've ever seen when it came to handling funds. But 2 years ago, my grandma was diagnosed with cancer. She worked her butt off her whole life, was the strongest woman on the planet, and nobody got by without paying her dues. Eventually, my grandma dies. In her will, she gives money to my grandpa, my dad, my uncle, me, and my sisters. Everyone in her family. But when it comes to Jay, she says, "You still owe me $14." I do not know if she actually somehow deaded Jay $14 in a will or just put it in there as a little slap in the face. But all Jay was worried about when my grandma died was the money, and she got none of it. I can't be prouder to have a grandma that wouldn't leave this world without the last laugh. I guess I forgot to include it, but Jay is also a drug addict. That's why she needed my grandmother's money constantly. My grandmother was a great woman and a great mother to me, and she raised me well. And then they went back and edited a post, and they said, because people want to blame my grandmother, I said she raised three kids that were hers and three kids that were not. The kids that were hers turned into drug addicts, and the three kids that weren't turned into people who could handle their emotions and found therapy for themselves. I think it was a generational problem rather than the bad parenting she's been accused of. She was the kindest woman I'd ever met, but also the strongest. All three of us are getting therapy for things that aren't related to my grandmother, and my uncle, my dad, and my aunt are not. Do we not think that maybe the generational differences of people who were often not given the needed resources and people with the technology to find the needed resources might be in factoring how they handle their mental illness? Maybe. That last part I think is just them trying to reply to people in their comments saying maybe the
Yeah, we don't
grandmother.
need the last part. We can just cut it to
Yeah.
the grandma's. Yeah.
She raised me well.
Yeah, but that grandma is petty.
I know.
That grandma is petty. I love
14
it.
$14. Not even like,
$14.
I thought it would be maybe like 400, or like
Fourteen
money.
hundred.
Exactly. But $14.
$14. That's all it takes. Grandma was like, "Oh, you think you could play me?"
I think it's not even about the money.
Or like what I
Mhm.
would have done is I'll give you and it'll be like minus $14. It would have been it would have been
Nice.
20,000, but now you're getting 19,000 900
Now, fam, I'm petty.
and $86.
You know what I would do?
Mm.
I would figure out which state you're living in, and because I think they tax you on that, on like inheritance money and stuff,
Do they?
and make sure that I give you enough so that after taxes, you owe the state $14. I think they do.
That would be weird.
I think they tax inheritance. That's why people like to put it in trust funds. Yeah, because you cannot, when it's in a trust, you don't get taxes on it, but you don't pay taxes on it. But if it's just cash, you do. You do get paid. You think somebody is going to come and give you like 50K and the state's not gonna come knock on your door like,
No,
hello, where's my chair? Chair.
okay? So I see here on in the state here it says is 0% on transfers
Mm-hmm.
to surviving spouses to a parent or child under 21. It's 4.5% to direct descendants and
See?
lineal heirs. 12% to transfer to siblings.
See, so wow. They wow.
Nah, if I know I have cancer, I'm gonna send that money to everybody's bank account before I go.
Yep, exactly. Like don't
Screw you.
no
Screw
taxes.
you.
Yep. That is
No,
awful.
man, this day will milk any situation.
I'm telling you.
Golly.
You think they'll just be okay with you not giving them a
No.
share of such a lump
But the
amount of
fact
money?
that the people were coming for the grandma's like way of raising the kids and stuff, that doesn't make sense to me because that's not what the story is about.
Yeah,
They
and
were
not
just talking about the pettiness, you know? Like sometimes
and
live people's life the way they were, and the woman didn't have to leave them money. They could
exactly.
have done for themselves.
And she's
So
not responsible for how they turned out as adults. She's responsible for whatever childhood trauma she may have given them. But as an
yeah,
adult,
totally.
it's your responsibility to unlearn all of that.
I mean, true, but sometimes people do get affected though. Like certain things, like they
They
affect
do.
you, and then one thing leads to another. Like because of that, you get yourself into other situations that just
That's
keeps on
true.
adding to it, you know.
Yeah,
But
I think
that was not the conversation for that post. I just feel like
no,
it was not what it was meant to be. Like when the person posted it,
it
so
really was not. It was just, hey, she left 14 like she reminded people
she
who
was
owed her
petty.
money. And
Yeah.
I loved
All right, that was good.
it.
That was good.
Yay.
It's kind of sad, but
Mm-hmm.
it's good. Now we're going into the other story I had for you. Are you even ready?
Yes. I want to know what she's gonna do.
I'm excited. All right, so it's also from the No Sleep subreddit, and it says, I convinced my wife she only had a few weeks to live. She didn't react the way I expected. Okay, before you go on calling me a complete asshole, you should know my wife. Stacy has pulled some seriously fucked up pranks in the past. Like last August, after my mom got hit by an eight-wheeler, she secretly signed up for ventriloquism lessons so that during the funeral she could throw her voice and yell, Get me out of here. I'm still alive.
Damn.
Damn it. While the pallbearer lowered the casket. Or there was that time she tricked me into thinking I'd won the lottery. That alone I might have laughed off. Except she also convinced me to call my very married asshole boss and tell him the whole office department knows he fucked his secretary at the office Christmas party. So I'd been looking for a little payback, you might say. Just last week, Stacy came down with a ferocious migraine, and 3 days in bed with a damp rag across the head didn't help one bit. So off to the hospital we went. From across the desk in his cramped office, Dr. Mercer said she needed a brain scan. He also suggested that, in his professional opinion, she should brace her out. We should brace ourselves for the worst. Time slowed down while we waited in for the diagnosis. Adrift and forlorn, we held each other for hours on end, while the seconds trickled by on the clock above the mantelpiece. Oh, sure, my beloved kept a brave face. But anytime she returned from her solo walk, her eyes would be all red and puffed out. Well, this morning, Dr. Mercer finally called while Stacy was at the store. He used the landline because she didn't answer her phone. So, what's the diagnosis? I asked, my stomach hole folding on itself in knot. Again and again, he insisted he couldn't discuss the case with anyone beside the patient. All the 10 minutes of grovering wore him down. He sighed, lowered his voice, then he said he had a hunch. Stacy and I would have cause for celebrations this Valentine's Day. All joy seeped back into my whole world. I thanked the doctor a million times before collapsing into the chair, an idea for a prank already blooming in my mind. And boy, was it a doozy. At the lounging table, At the lounge table, I rubbed my eyes until they turned all bloodshot, and then practiced my sullen face. Soon I heard little Miss Love to Prank come through the front door. kick off her shoes, and shuffle along the wall. As she stepped into the room, I looked up without saying a single word. A head shot over A hand shot up over her mouth. I swallowed a club. Then, in a thin, weak voice, I said, Dr. Mercer called. Is it bad? Rather than answer, I simply pretended to sob into my hand. Stacy didn't burst into tears or scream, nor did she collapse on the floor. Instead, she let out a deep sigh and threw her head back. On the wall beside the window stood a dark wooden cabinet. She went over to it, slid open the bottom drawer, and lifted out a huge metal trunk. I stood up. Everything okay? The trunk had a combination lock. Once Stacy rolled the numbers into place, the latch opened with a little click. Do you love me? She asked over her shoulder. Still in character, I said, Of course I love you. I'll always love you. And we're gonna get. Then drink this. She spun around, holding out a whiskey bottle. I craned my neck and peeked inside the trunk and glimpsed a pair of handcuffs and a red bow tie before she blocked my view. I bought it for a special occasion, she said. I stepped forward, arms outstretched. Listen, no matter what, we're going to get through this mess together. Just drink it, she snapped. Please, it's important to me. If you love me, you'll drink it. Was this a joke? I searched her face for answers, finding none. But hell, who was I to judge? Everybody processes grief, in their own individual way. Sure, honey. I grabbed the bottle from her and took a long swing, my insides already warming. 5 seconds later, the floor rose up to me. Darkness swallowed the whole lounge and everything in it. My next memory is of the words, I love you, drifting towards me from the end of the long tunnel. There was pressure inside my skull. I tried moving, couldn't. My hand had been cuffed behind my back, and my ankles were bound together by a length of rope. I was propped up on the sofa in the dusk. Through the haze, I saw two Stacys orbit one another, both wearing her favorite dress, that red off the shoulder number. In her right hand, she had a pistol. Where did that come from? Her voice echoed on and on as she told me she'd prepared for this day years ago. That she couldn't bear the thought of me carry on without her and starting a new family. Although I dipped in and out of consciousness, the world we have to go together kept stinging my ears. I trashed around, unable to speak. The best my drooling mouth could manage to slur random syllables. Stacy sat beside me and pressed her right temple against my left, the pistol angled in such a way one shot would tear through both our frontal lobes. Oh fuck. Did she plan on killing us? My attempts to beg her to wait come out as a nonsensical gurgle. Squeezing those beautiful green eyes of hers shut, Stacy said, Goodbye, Frank. I love you so, so much. By now, enough of the brain fog had lifted, and I could mutter, It was a prank. She stopped breathing, tensed up. What? I took several quick, short breaths. It's a prank. Dr. Mercer said you'll be fine, so I set you up as a payback for the lottery thing. For almost a minute, neither one of us said a word, the room thick with tension. Then, forcing a smile, she said, Well, duh. She stood. Did you really think I was gonna kill us both? I knew you were full of crap the second I walked in. You're the worst actor in the world. I just turned the prank around on you. Ha, ha, ha. The way she said this, every word steeped in sincerity, made the statement swing all the way back towards hollow. She crossed the room and slipped the gun back into the trunk before returning with a key to unlock my cuffs. Well, that's the relief. That's the relief about the diagnosis. We should celebrate. How about we order Thai tonight? After she loosened the rope, I got up, rubbing my shaft wrist. My vision blurred and my throat dry. Sounds great. Perfect. With that, she smiled, stood up on her tiptoes, lifted my chin with her finger, gave me a quick kiss, and then disappeared into the kitchen. My shirt was a drenched rag against my chest. Had it really been a prank? Surely dragging me was a step too far, even for her. Just then, the phone wailed. It sounded painfully loud inside my aching skull. Dr. Mercer was on the line, and this time, his voice carried a distant sour note. Frank, I'm really sorry. There's been a mix up in the results. Can you have Stacy call me as soon as possible? It's urgent. The room tilted from side to side. The ground shifted beneath my feet. My better half came back through the door and said, Who was that, honey? I hung up and swallowed a lump in my throat. Wrong number. And that's the end of the story.
She was a 1000. There is nothing in this world that you can say to convince me she was not going to kill him. And maybe possibly kill herself, but she was ready to 100% kill him. Poison him first, get him a little loosey loosey, and then kill him. She was going to kill
Yeah,
him. It
yeah.
was not a prank.
I know. I think it wasn't a prank too.
Are you kidding me?
It was not a prank.
Wow, that is so awful. You see, the whole when she started with the "Do you love me? If you love me, drink this."
Right.
No, no, don't blackmail me into drinking anything. Now, what about if I love you? No, I don't love you. What do you mean? That is so awful. And then she tried to pass it off as, oh, that's just a prank. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to actually kill you because I thought I was going to die. This is that if I'm not happy, you're not going to be happy. If I'm not living, and no way in hell you are going to get to live without me and you get to. No,
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
She's like, I couldn't bear the thought of you moving on. Having a family, like, no, 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 no. She crazy. She crazy.
See, I don't. I like whenever I see on Instagram or any other social media those prank couples, I
I
hate
don't like
it.
it.
I hate it. I do not don't if my husband ever tries to pull that on me, I will make sure it's the first and last time he ever does. Cause
Yeah.
no, you're living in fear.
That's how disrespect happens. Like, I feel like people don't see it that way. We just look at it as it's something innocent, but
Mm-hmm.
it slowly builds up because you do something and the person will try to outdo it, and in that you end up hurting each other without even knowing it. Because then you
Mm-hmm.
keep small grudges on certain things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was a prank, it was funny, but you still have emotions. Like if somebody does, like let's say, like I'm sitting on the bed and you come with a water balloon and just blow it on me.
Right. And then we gotta change the
Oh,
whole
it's
sheets.
funny if I was in the kitchen. You can just mop that. Now my
Even
whole bed
then.
is drenched and I'm drenched and I hate that.
I hate that too. Like
I'm gonna
that
be pissed.
unnecessary cleanup. Like even if you do the cleanup, it's just annoying because I have to go clean myself up.
There was this couple I saw. Is I don't know if it's milk, heavy milk or paint. I think it probably heavy milk. But they just have this continuous prank where they just blow balloons filled with milk on each other all
I
over the
saw those. Yeah,
carpet.
I saw those.
No, somebody's
Yeah.
about to get it. I'm gonna mess you up.
No. Yeah, and because they keep trying to make it um into areas that you wouldn't think your partner would do
Right.
it, like, oh,
I'm not
he's
gonna
not gonna
do it
get me.
in the
Like
bed.
imagine how annoying that is to. Yeah, like who's cleaning that? I'm not cleaning that.
Now your whole house smells like fart. Like imagine, because there's no way you're getting all this milk out of the carpet.
Oh, ew, you're right.
It's gonna be some leftover. Now the whole house just smells like manure.
It does smell nasty,
Nasty.
like when he sits and
Or eggs and stuff like that. No.
oh, yeah, they do that too, like throwing. Anyways, it's
I
not for me. She was
personally
ready to
don't
kill him.
even like little using F bombs in conversation jokingly. I don't like it. I don't like it because one day it's gonna escalate
Yeah,
and you're so comfortable using it around me that you're just gonna real for real use it on like against me, and
that's
that was the
true.
day I'll just lose it.
I'm not as strict about using the F bomb around me. I don't like we don't do that very often, but and I'm okay with people doing it, but just never address me that way. Never you like,
That's what I'm saying. Like, you can say it in the conversation. I'm not saying you shouldn't curse.
oh,
Like
okay.
you could just be like, "Oh, this happened. It was fucking crazy. It was this and that." No,
Yeah,
but like,
okay.
don't
Yeah.
tell me directly like, "Oh my god, you're so fucking crazy. You're full of shit."
Oh,
Like stuff like that.
no.
Like jokingly.
No.
No, I don't even
No.
do that with my friends. So
No.
like,
Oh, Geneva, you're so
you're so full. But
you
you're full
can't
of
hit
shit
me.
though. You are full of shit for
Uh,
sure.
look who's talking. Look who's talking. Wow. Isn't it the pot making fun of the kettle? Wow. Oh my goodness. Would you look at that? I'm sensing some projection here. But yeah, damn right. And I would talk my shit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was crazy. I really thought that lady was gonna kill him,
Yeah,
and
I'm I'm I'm
he better
convinced.
pack up tonight. You know,
Oh
better
yeah.
yet, just leave with the shirt on the back of it. Like, just
You
leave.
know
Just
what?
leave.
I just have a thought for part two. Imagine he's like, I gotta kill her first, but I need to make it look like a prank gone wrong. And now it's this game
Ooh.
between the two of them where they try to prank each other to make it pass as that.
This is giving me like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type of vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. That's a good one.
That could
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
fun.
Okay. Well, you come up with that
Oh,
part too,
we'll
and
see.
we'll finish up the story. All right. Well, that's everything we had today. Thank you for listening. Again,
Yeah.
leave us the notes. Let us know what you think of the episode on Spotify or YouTube. And yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for joining
bye
us.
bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo.